We're here, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Fright Night, and I have a special guest here, which will make his arrival here soon once he makes it here. It's been a great night tonight. Gonna share up the stream now, ladies and gentlemen. Take 'em on, take 'em on. We are awaiting our guest here, ladies and gentlemen. He shall be here soon. Hello, sir.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Not too bad, good sir. How goes it?
A little chilly in North Carolina right now. Otherwise, it's all right. How you doing?
Not too bad, good sir. Not too bad. Very excited for this interview, and I don't really know you as much personally, and maybe a lot of my audience might not as well. But may I make clear though, there is I put it out public, so basically people on your Facebook will see this, and people on my Facebook will see this, so they'll be able to watch from my end to your end.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Freaking welcome on to Fright Night. I'm very honored to have you here. I think I'm going to start off with the standard first question. Let's start off actually talking about your backyard wrestling career. You had a backyard wrestling career for a time starting. And
yeah, go ahead.
You had a backyard wrestling career for a time starting. And then you found the eFed world. What brought you to backyard wrestling, and what were you doing there? So the people know what you're all about.
Well, what I was doing with the backyard wrestling was basically it was me and a bunch of my friends just being crazy kids doing crazy things. This is back in the '90s. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'll
sir.
make sure. This is back in the '90s, the mid '90s or so, and backyard wrestling was popular back then. Wrestling was just starting to get as popular as it was. Now, I've been a wrestling fan. It goes back so far for me. I'm 45 years old. I've been a wrestling fan. My first memory as a human being was TV. My first memory of something being on TV was wrestling. So it goes back that far for me. I've been a wrestling fan since I started remembering. And of course, the kids that like wrestling or like to compete or whatever it might be, they'd want to come and hang out. And it was just, like I said, it was some crazy kids doing some crazy dumb shit in the backyard on a trampoline sometimes. Sometimes it was just on the ground. More oftentimes than not, it was on the ground. We didn't really mess with the trampoline too much. We would just get in the backyard and throw down.
That's awesome.
And then it was some years after that, because we stopped doing it when they started talking about holding the parents liable for what the children were doing. So if, for instance, you and I were backyard wrestling and someone reported it, then whoever owned the property would have gotten in trouble for it. Don't know if they were doing it like that everywhere, but that's what the talk was in North Carolina. So we had to stop, because not trying to get mama in trouble for me being crazy. Might get a beating and who knows what else if that happens. So then it
Yeah.
was some years. It was some years later. It was 2016. It was that much longer after that I discovered the online wrestling thing, and that was after it was after I had attempted to actually get into wrestling. Actually get into wrestling. I've had some interesting travels in my life, and some of my travels for 12 and a half years were in prison. Um, and in prison, you run into all kinds of different people. And one of the COs, when I got to medium custody, there's three custody levels. There's close, medium, and minimum. Close being,
Yeah.
other than max, close being the most guarded. And there's not a lot of talking between inmates and whatnot and guards and in there, and never was. And then you get to medium custody, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit of a culture shock because you hear, oh well, you don't talk to the officers, you don't do this, you don't do that. Well, you get to medium custody and everybody's talking to officers and stuff like that. Well, still, I held to the not talking to them as much, but there was one I got in trouble for smoking inside, smoking in the dorm one time, and ended up having to clean the hallway until the shift changed. And so I heard two officers, they were arguing back and forth about something. I don't remember what exactly, but it was something about wrestling. So they're talking about wrestling and talking back and forth and back and forth. And I don't recall what it was, but I had the right answers to the question they were asking each other. I was like, no, it was such and such. So they stopped and they looked at me and they were like, well, what do you know about wrestling? I said, well, some people they know NFL, some people know NASCAR, NBA, hockey. I know wrestling. Might be what you would call a historian in that. So they were like, well, we wrestle. It was like, we wrestle for real. And I was like, okay, well, one of them was a fairly large fella. So I was like, okay, well, maybe you do. But I was like, what about him? He was a smaller guy. He was like, well, he's like, I wrestle. He's a manager. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, he makes it. All right. So the tall dude, whose gimmick is Ali Steele. He has a crew he runs around here in North Carolina, around the Fayetteville area and whatnot, called the Gorilla Squad. And he was like, maybe sometimes if you're up late enough, you'll catch us on the public access channel. We're on there sometimes on Midnight Mayhem. So I was like, okay, well, we'll see if we can catch you, because you don't never know what you're going to be able to catch when you're in stir. Well, sure enough, we're up late one night. We get the guard to come in and turn the station to what we wanted to get to, and there he is. Okay. So he was an officer that I would have conversations about the business with a lot because, like I said, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to get into the business. I wanted to be a wrestler. So we would discuss it back and forth, and he was like, well, look, when you get out, look me up, and we'll train you. So years go on, I get out of medium, I get into minimum, and I'm talking with some guys about the crazy shit pardon my language, crazy stuff we used to do in the backyard. And he was like, and so this was a guy, he was in with me. He was an inmate as well. He was like, so you used to wrestle in front of people? I was like, nah, we used to wrestle in the backyard, just doing crazy stuff, just doing dumb shit. And he was like, well, I used to wrestle in front of people. So I'm like, yeah, all right, buddy, we're in prison. Be all you can be. So we have count time, and after count time, he comes back, and he's got a stack of pictures. And he showed me these pictures, and I'm looking, and it's him actually competing in a wrestling ring. I'm like, well, okay, it's for real. So I get to talking to him about it. And we get to talking more and more about the business as days and weeks and months go by. Me and him get cool. And when I get out, he gets out before I do. When I get out, he's one of the first people that comes to see me. One of the first phone conversations I had when I got out was with Ali Steele. And he was asking me,
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. He's like, look, can you get to Fayetteville? Well, I had just got out. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money or nothing like that. I'm trying to get myself back on my feet. So I'm like, I don't have money for this, man. And I can't get to Fayetteville. So he's like, well, look, if you can get to Fayetteville, don't worry about the money. I was like, all right, man, I'll see what I can do. I said, I got another offer too. I'm gonna see about what they're talking about too. And that was with NWA Mid Atlantic. And started out, it was NWA Rage. The guy that owned NWA Rage, a guy that goes by, I don't know what his real name is to this day. His gimmick name was Vinny Vane, and The other fellow that I was in with, his gimmick name was
Oh,
Nice Returns.
you did like block out a little bit. You said Vinny
Vinny
who?
Vane.
Okay,
Um,
sorry. Continue. You
sorry,
just blocked
sorry
out there.
about that. Um,
No, you're
and
good.
so the guy that I had the most contact and talking with was Nice Returns. He was the guy that was in with me, so I had called him and I was like, "Well, what's the deal? What kind of deal? What kind of deal you got for this? Because I ain't got no money." He was like, "Nah, man, look, just come help us set the ring up, tear the ring down, put the chairs out, maybe work the door, do whatever we need you to do, and we'll train you." This is like old school making your bones in professional wrestling. So I was drawn a little more to that. So I was like, all right, cool. So I got a hold of Ali and I was like, look, man, I think I'm gonna go with NWA and NWA Mid Atlantic and see what they're talking about. So I was like, all right, cool. And I end up working 2 shows with them, and I see that the deal's not going to work out like they're saying it's going to work out, because I worked 2 shows with them and I bumped in a ring one time. So I was like, all right, cool. So I talked to Nas about it. He was like, yeah. He's like, I'm talking to Vinny and I'm telling him that if we're not going to actually train you, then we need to maybe pay you for what you're doing. I'm like, well, look, I'm good. I'm cool. I was older. I was like 34 years old, and falling down started to hurt more. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm good. I got really close. I got really close to doing this, and I think I'm at peace with it. So I think I'm just going to move on in life. So I did, and then fast back forward again to 2016. I'm in South Carolina doing fence work, and I have WWE 2K16 on Xbox. My buddy that I'm staying with and working for and helping, he doesn't have it, but he's got a PlayStation. So I'm like, well, look, I'll go and I'll buy this game for PlayStation. We'll play this game on PlayStation. And that's where I discovered the online wrestling federation. I was like, wait a minute, they're doing this online. They're just people playing their characters online. I might be able to do this, because ever since you could make a character with your name on it, I've been making my character. So you're talking about all the way back to like No Mercy, Nintendo
Yeah.
64, No Mercy. Um, so he's been around since then. But as far as on the EFED leagues and stuff like that, he's been around since 2016. And he started out, he was a tribute to my late grandfather Joseph. So he was Joseph Alexander, and he wrestled under a mask. That was back when I was running him in EFEDs over in the UK and Japan and places like that. At one point, I was running like three EFEDs, the same storyline in all 3 EFEDs, the same feud in all 3 EFEDs, and that's a little more than I would want to do now. But that's how I got started. So I'm Joseph Alexander, and I'm running and doing it, and I have this promo style that I have now for the most part. It's evolved. Once you take a mask off and you start showing your face, you evolve your character a little bit more. So I took the mask off of him, and he became Daryl Williams. He became basically me. Um,
Yeah.
and so I had gotten a shirt from his company. I had gotten 2 shirts from his company called Hostility Clothing. I was looking, thinking, not even really thinking about it to start with, but then you start thinking about, well, okay, I've been watching wrestling for the better part of 45 years, and I've never heard. There may have been one somewhere out there somewhere, but I've never heard of a group in wrestling called Hostility. All right. So I'm gonna put this group together called Hostility. And while I was still over in the UK doing it a little bit in the UK, I pitched it to a few people, and about like 4 people were agreeable to join up with it and everything, and it got its start there. Um, then those federations just weren't doing anything anymore. Online federations come and go pretty quickly. Um, so
Hmm.
then I'm looking around for something new, wanting to find somewhere else to get myself into, and I find the UWF, the Untouchable Wrestling Federation. And the main thing that drove that that caught my eye about the UWF was the commentary team. The commentary team was entertaining. They were funny. They were comedic. Matt Dawes and John Reese ran UWF, and Matt Dawes is the son of the late Chris Champion. who was known as Yoshi Kwan, and a few other names. So that was cool. That was a cool little thing. I went to school with Jay Youngblood's daughter, Jay Romero's daughter. I went to school with her, knew her, were good friends with her. But yeah, so I get in there and haven't really started the whole hostility thing there yet. I get in there, get my feet, first matches, I take their world champion to a double count out. The next match, I take their world champion to a double count out. I think the third match, I think he beat me. But it's a pretty decent debut. So I'm pitching it to them. I'm like, look, guys, I got this group that I was trying to get on. I was trying to get started when I was when I was running over in UK called Hostility. Could I start that here? They were like, yeah, go ahead. If it works, it works. If it don't, you had to figure something else out. So I got in touch with a good friend of mine, Jeremiah Johnson. He's in IWA as Johnson right now. He was I brought him over. He was probably the first American member of Hostility on American soil, quote unquote. And the cool thing about IWA and their commentators is we would post in the chat while the match was going on. We'd post in the chat like what we're doing backstage. We're back here. We're beating up some COOs. We're tearing up catering. We're messing up all this stuff backstage. We're doing this. We're doing that. And they'd interact with it. They were getting us over. So
Yeah.
It worked really well. It was a good little run in UWF. And Jeremiah won some titles. I was my fiance had a character. She won the women's championship there. I never did. My character doesn't win a lot of championships. He doesn't win a lot of matches. He functions most of the time like an old school heel does. He'll beat his opponent up for most of the match, and then the opponent will come back from underneath and they'll beat him. He operates like an old school heel for some reason, which is cool for me because that's kind of my gimmick, an old school heel. Always been more comfortable playing a heel. The closest I ever got to playing a face was when I turned on Jeremiah in UWF, and still wasn't. Would be more like a face in the vein of maybe a Steve Austin or maybe Triple H when he was a face. That kind of personality and whatnot.
Yeah.
UWF ended up getting John Reese. He coaches like Little League, Mighty Mites football and stuff, and I think he's either moving up to the middle school or the high school level where he's at in Tennessee now. So he's pretty busy. Life is lifing, and it's a hobby. So we're looking for somewhere else to go. We're trying to find somewhere else to go now. So we found out about DTKA. DTKA looks like the big leagues. If the UWF was, say, our ECW, for example, DTKA was probably our WWE. And it's not to say that UWF's production was off or anything like that. They had great production or everything, but as a whole product, if you've ever seen Archie's product, if you've ever seen DTKA, it's got a different feel to it. It's like the WWF had a different feel than the WCW did, and it's just the way. If it's not throwing shade at anybody, it's just different things are done different ways, and this looked a different way. So
hear that, ladies and gentlemen? DTKA.
Yeah,
DTKA.
Drinking Kool-Aid. Shout out to Archie Red, all those guys there. Without Archie Red, without Matt Dawes, John Reese, and Archie Red, there wouldn't be a hostility as you see it right now. It wouldn't be as quote unquote legendary it is now. Our hostility spans 8 years and 5 federations. It's I wouldn't have ever thought that it would have been as big a deal as it is, or it would have gone as long as it has. People that know hostility.
Yeah.
Hopefully, a lot of people that are watching now will want to get to know it. We're going through an angle right now where we're kind of melting down. Jeremiah and I keep trying to get out of it. We keep trying to, retire and whatnot, but the ring just keeps calling us back.
Ring's not an easy place to leave.
man, I couldn't imagine doing it for real and how hard it is for those guys when they're doing it for real to leave it. If it's this hard on this level, I couldn't imagine how much harder it is in real life to leave it when you're talking about retiring. I see why Terry Funk and Ric Flair have had 50 retirement tours and they still probably haven't actually retired yet.
Yep.
So yeah, DTKA, it was a little rocky to start with. We probably were buying into our own shit a little too much. I mean, myself and Hostility was such a menace and such a big deal in the UWF that there were guys that had like my likeness on their shirt with a circle and a line through it, because that's that was just how big a menace we were. We were small. We were a little bit smaller fish in a bigger pond when we got to DTKA. So that took a little bit of piss out of us. We ended up leaving over a discrepancy with a finish to a match. I mean, there's not a lot you can do about it when the match isn't like set up. That's Orlando. That's a member of Hostility right there. That's fucking Norris.
Well, welcome, Orlando. Maybe we should take a minute here to acknowledge who's joined us. We have Michael Miller. Hello, brother. We have Damian the King Briggs, Daniel J. Baldwin, who runs Colary Community Wrestling. Go check them out. B. Moore Johnson from
So,
AOWE, as you know, and he shouted out to some names. Chris the Mighty Cleve, Shockwave, Ollie Bryant, EJ West Coast Matthews, AJ Scott. Welcome, everybody, for this amazing interviews. Would you like to continue, sir?
Where was I? The DTKA, yeah, DTKA. It gets a little rocky to start with, and we come back and we end up winning the tag team titles. We win the tag team titles, and we go on a pretty good run. We are at this moment, since DTKA is not the wrestling part of DTKA is not in production anymore. So at this moment, we are still undefeated, and we are still the longest reigning DTKA tag team champions. That's Johnson and myself. Hostility. Thank you. We went from DTKA to a promotion called TWS that was trying to get off of the ground. Won the tag team titles there. There ended up being some stuff we didn't agree with going on there, so we left there. We left there the tag team champions as well. And then Chris was like, why don't we start our own thing? We've been around it long enough, and we figured out we know how to do this, and we know what we don't want to do with it, and why don't we just do our own thing? So I was like, okay, sure, why not? So there we are, man, IWA, and this is probably the best online wrestling federation locker room I've ever been in. There's not a lot of the politics in IWA. There's not a lot of the infighting in IWA, because it's known that, okay, this is how we do this. Everybody's on 100, and our matches are completely simulated. We don't set up the wins. We don't set up the losses. They're completely 100% simulated. You can watch when Chris is setting up the match. You see every screen he goes through to set a match up, and you see, you can't dispute the fact that, okay, who won and who lost. My character was the first ever do or die champion. My character was the first ever world champion. And I am currently on a United States title run right now.
Nice.
Did a little redesigning on the character.
Welcome.
Did a little messing with the AI. Did a little bit of messing with the stats and whatnot. And listening to people who figured that part of it out a little bit better than me. And I'm good with the visuals. I'm good with the attires and things like that, and I make belts, I make arenas, all that kind of stuff, but wasn't ever really good with the actual like move sets and AI stuff and all that. And I was listening to some people and did some remaking on them, and came back after an injury angle and won the U.S. title. So that's working out pretty good right now. I'm kind of looking forward to whoever it is that I'm going to drop that title to, because for me now it's more about putting over the next guy. It's about who the next star is going to be. And I mean, I've been there. I'm a Hall of Famer in UWF. What's up, Matt Dawes? There's Matt Dawes right there.
Welcome, Matt Dobbs, and welcome, Shockwave.
Matt Dawes, he ran the UWF, man. That's my man right there. He put
Hello,
he
sir.
really
It's an honor to
he
meet you.
really put hostility on. If it hadn't have been for how him and John Reese was willing to work with us, like I said, we wouldn't be, you know, it really wouldn't worked out. It wouldn't have worked out at all because you can role play all you want to, but if nobody's reacting to it, you're basically talking to a wall.
Practically, like you need
Yep,
that reaction. Like in wrestling, if you don't get a reaction from the crowd, then you're not going to be on there for too long because if the people don't react, there's no point.
exactly. But yeah, dude.
Welcome, Ali. Welcome,
John Reese, the same another guy that ran UWF, man. John Reese, love y'all fellas, man.
welcome,
John
John.
Reese and Matt Dawes, y'all my dudes, man. Y'all the reason why I'm at the level I am right now, I would say. Because it gives you confidence. It gives you confidence if you know what you're doing has a little bit to it. If there are reactions to it, even if it is just the commentators reacting to it, well, there's got to be something to it because somebody's reacting. You know, if
Exactly.
so yeah, man. Yeah, those are my dudes, man. They're big shout outs to y'all, man. Big shout outs. But we can open it up to some questions now if you want to. That's pretty much the quick cliffs notes of it.
Well, speaking of going forward with questions, I actually would like to ask. You said you were on a U.S. title run at this current
Yes.
moment, right? Since you said you wanted to put over the new talent,
Hold on,
like
give me
if
one
you
second. Give me
did,
1 second. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'll be right. I'm not going anywhere but just right here and there. Hold on 1 second.
yes, sir.
Hey, come on right now. Okay.
Welcome everybody. Um, we all have personal lives, so he had to go attend to some matters. Thank you everybody for joining in. First timers, new old ones too. Thank you everybody. Go to the Fright Night channel, and this has been an amazing interview. Get to know who Daryl is, and I try to exactly duty calls.
Sorry, my daughter woke up. I had got her asleep, but she woke up. Um,
No problems, man. Totally understand. Family
yeah,
matters.
I apologize for that.
No
You
apologies
mind
needed, man.
if I smoke? Mind if
Personal
I
life.
smoke a cigarette on here?
That's
All right, good.
cool. Well, I can go for it, bro. Smoke.
But yeah,
Like I said, I haven't smoked. I haven't smoked anything like, but I don't see a problem with smoking cigarettes. I don't think they'll be mad at that. It's a cigarette, you
yes,
know.
sir.
We ain't promoting anything.
No, no, not at all. Okay, your question about the U.S. title. What's up?
You said you wanted to maybe push over the next generation, or maybe there's somebody that you think might be worthy. If you had to give me like a 5 names that you think are worthy to step up, or that you would like to face for the title, who would it be?
Sir Scott Ryan. Um,
Okay.
Ali, Ali, and the Big Bad Baby Daddy and his cause. They finally got their just due. I'm really happy for them. So yeah, Sir Scott Ryan, Scott Wayne. I wouldn't mind Scott Wayne. Um, Blackthorn, Wyatt Blackthorn. I believe his last name is Blackthorn. He'd be a good one. Any of the psychopathic writers that wanted to go single would be good. Um, I wouldn't mind putting if it came to it. I wouldn't mind putting over um Peace, Devo Peace, Devo No Peace as he's calling himself at this moment. But yeah, there's not really anybody in IWA that I would have a problem putting over. There's not anybody to have a problem putting over anyway. But as far as believing that they could carry it on, there's nobody in IWA that we got the lion's share. Okay, again, not throwing shade at anyone, but as far as once DTKA was done and UWF was not UWF, but TWS. we got a lot. We got a lot of the talent from those places, and there was a lot of talent in both places. And they're elsewhere.
Apparently, Ali would like to see you face Blackthorn. I would just like to point out that's what he said. He said that would be a great match.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I believe so as well. I believe so as well. Yeah, there's nobody that I mean. I put B Moore's Carl Chambers over for the world title. Had no problem with that at all. It's been a long time coming for him.